Today's tutorial is going to be simple and straightforward. I have two separate pieces of fabric here that were folded into two each. So the measurement for each piece of fabric was gotten from my shoulder measurement plus my sleeve length times 2. So my shoulder measurement is 14 inches and my sleeve length is 7 inches. So that's 7 times 2 plus 14, which gave me 28 inches. And I added about 2 inches of allowance. So I cut out two separate pieces of fabric, 30 inches each. So what I did here was to take out my shoulder seam allowance, and then I'm measuring the full length of the dress. I'm using 35 inches for this dress. And then I'll measure out the bottom hem allowance also. Initially, I planned to use an invisible zip at the shoulder, but I changed my mind, so I'll advise you add 2 inches to the back piece fabric for zipper allowance. This is a free dress or a shift dress, so I didn't use my exact body measurements. I added 2 inches to my waist and my hip measurement. So I'm done with my full length measurements and I'm just cutting out the excess fabric I have at the bottom. So I'm going to put in my neck measurements, my front and back neck measurements, and connect them with a curve. And then I marked my shoulder to waist measurement, and on that line I put down my waist measurement divided by 4. Then I'll mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus my sleeve length, that's 7 plus 7. Then I moved the tape down a little bit and marked ½ inch less than what I marked at the shoulder point. Now I'm just connecting that line, and then I'll measure 1 inch down from that shoulder line and connect it to the neck. Now I'll mark my round arm measurement divided by 2 on this slanted line and go back to the waist measurement we had put down earlier. We'll connect that round arm measurement onto the waist with a slight curve like so, and then I'll measure my hip line 9 inches from my waistline, and on that hip line I'll put in my hip measurement divided by 4. That's the same measurement I'll have at the bottom hem. So I'm just going to put down the same hip measurement at the bottom hem and connect the line from the hip straight down. So I'm just going to cut out the excess fabric, leaving ½ inch allowance. I cut both pieces first with the back neck measurement before I lifted up the front piece and cut out the front neck measurement. So this is what it looks like after we cut out the excess fabric. I'll show you how I'll connect the zipper to the back of the dress for ease of wearing. So here I have just my back piece. So I'm measuring my waistline, which is 15 inches from my shoulder, and I'm going in by ½ inch on that waistline. I'll draw a slanting line onto the back, the upper back, to eliminate the zip bulge. This step is very important because this kind of dresses tend to have a bulge at the back. So from the waistline downward, I'll mark 5 inches and connect the slant also. Now I'll cut the back piece into 2 separate pieces and cut out that mark we just did for the zip bulge. This is why I mentioned earlier that it will be best to add 2 inches to the back piece for attaching the zip. Basically taking off 1 inch for the zip bulge, and I'll be using another 1 inch to join the zip. So let's head over to the sewing machine. got out two pieces of fabric from my pocket that measures 8 inches by 9 inches, and this includes my hemming allowance. So I'm starting with the top. I'll fold it twice like a rolled hem and sew that down. That's where my hand is going to pass through. And the rest of the edges are going to be folded just once and sewn closer to the rough edge. I folded down my center back once and sewed it because I don't have a weaving machine or a serger to keep the rough ends neat. If you have, you could skip this part and just serge it down before attaching your zipper to the back. So this is what it looks like when I finish attaching the zip. I'm just going to seal up the bottom of the center back. After doing that, I'll join the front and back pieces, wrong sides facing each other, and sew the shoulders together on the outside. Once again, because I don't have an overlock machine to just seal it from the inside and weave it. So I use the French seam method to complete most of my dresses. I set along about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to trim off the rough excess, flip it over and sew it one more time, and that's going to keep the inside neat without any fray. I'll do the same to the side seams, sewing on the outside first, trimming off the excesses, flipping it inside out, and sewing it down again. For the bottom hem, I'm doing the regular rolled hem. Just fold your fabric twice down using the allowance you kept at the bottom. I'll do the same thing to the armhole. What I'm doing here is just a step I take to avoid having bulky hemlines at the edges that have already been joined before. I'll be piping the neck in a way that I don't need the allowance I left earlier, so I'm just going to trim that off and then measure out the new neckline. I'll use that measurement to cut out a strip of fabric on bias that's 1.5 inches wide. I'm going to fold that just like a bias tape and put the neck of the dress in between that fold here. I'm just going to sandwich it in between like you're seeing me do. You can always arrange it and hold it down with pins before you start sewing. Or if you've mastered sewing already, you could just keep arranging each part as you sew. Now it's time for our external pockets. I'm going to measure from my shoulder 17 inches down. That's where I'll be placing my pockets. I marked the spot, folded my pocket into two on the inside, and then placed it on that mark and held it down with pins. I did it this way so that I could centralize the placement of the pocket on the side. Here you can see me repeating the same thing I did at the top to the bottom part of the pocket, just to make sure that the pocket isn't bent awkwardly. Now I'm going to sew it down, leaving the top part of the pocket open. I'm going to sew it right on the edge, so it has that double seam line that external pockets usually have. And we're done with our simple shift dress. Please do well to like my video, subscribe to my channel, drop a comment or question if you have one, and share this video so others can find me. Thank you.